All right, we're live.
Hey.
Awesome. It's going to be a great day. Everybody welcome to another Next Level coaching call. So we got myself, Matthew Graham. We have Sheila Fejeran, Shannon Pyatt with us. We may have James Harner join us here in a little bit, not sure. But, you know, we were talking earlier. First of all, we had an amazing week. We just all got back from Las Vegas. Amazing week masterminding with top agents from across the country. And we had a little meeting earlier today, and we decided we wanted to talk a lot about mindset, and specifically mindset when lead generating, okay? We were kind of equating this to using it for agent attraction, but you can use it in agent attraction, or you can use it in just everyday prospecting, or talking to friends, family members, spheres of influence. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. So do you guys want to chime in and talk about mindset a little bit before we kind of jump in?
Sheila, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I think that I think a lot of times the biggest thing that agents have to work on is overcoming themselves and overcoming their own fears, their own worries, their own doubts, their own, what we call it the drunk monkey. Mm-hmm. And basically you just got to deal with yourself in order to be successful in this business. And all of us on this call, and any major agent that's successful in our industry will tell you that this is the biggest and most important thing that they had to tackle was themselves. And that once you overcome, and not that it goes away, meaning that it doesn't matter how long you're doing it, it just takes it to the next level, because the bigger you get, you have different obstacles that you have to overcome, or different mind things that you need to change. So it's a continual process of constantly growing and constantly becoming better.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to get out of your own way. That was the one thing we kept hearing over and over and over from all these leaders, right? Was you got to get out of your own way. And man, I'm the world's worst for it. I'll be the first to tell you.
Right. And you said something, what I think it comes back to me is get over your own ego. Right. And I think it was Brad Korn who said it to us one time at a training event I know we were all at. Get over yourself. When you're making a phone call, let's go into prospecting, and you're talking to maybe a for sale by owner, an expired listing, or your circle prospecting. They don't know who you are, right? You may be the biggest agent in the area, but guess what? 80% of the people out there still don't know who you are, or probably 90%, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and people who take it you cannot take it personal. I mean, just think about when a telemarketer calls you, right? First of all, they introduce themselves and they try to sell you something. Do you remember their name? Probably not. If you did remember their name, do you know their full name? Probably not. Are you pissed off at them afterwards? Probably not. Another telemarketer, okay, click. They're on with their lives. If you're sitting there worrying about it yourself, you're the only one suffering in that case. So you cannot take it personal. And then with that being said, get over your own ego. They don't know who you are. You're not as big as a real estate agent as you think you are. And even if you are, they still probably don't know you or know who you are. So, but I want to talk about getting the mindset of getting ready to make those calls and getting in the right state of mind to make those calls, and maybe stepping out of who you are and creating an alter ego. Okay. So in what is an alter ego? So if you think of a couple of stars out there, right? You have Marshall Mathers, right? Who not many people know the name Marshall Mathers. Some do. People know him as Eminem, right? Now, he was born Marshall Mathers, but Eminem is his alter ego. He actually has a second alter ego too, called Slim Shady, right? So when he gets up on stage, he's not Marshall Mathers. When he goes in the recording studio, he's not Marshall Mathers. He's Eminem, right? That's his alter ego. He gets himself in a different mindset. One of the other biggest stars out there is Beyonce, right? And Beyonce will tell you that herself, she's a very shy person. She's not, she doesn't like being in front of crowds. She doesn't like that. So before she gets on stage, she goes into a 30-minute or 30-second to 1 minute kind of way to pump her up, and she becomes Sasha Fierce, right? That's her alter ego. That's who she is on stage. If you get her in the middle of a performance and stopped it and said, "Who are you?" She's not Beyonce, right? She's Sasha Fierce. We can do the same thing when it comes to lead generation, making your phone calls. So some things you want to do is I want you to think about.
And
yeah,
Matt, chime in on that.
Yeah.
You're talking about Beyonce. I actually, being in my radio days, I actually met her in a radio station when she was not on stage. And you're right. She's extremely shy, extremely timid, totally different person than the way she is on stage. So you can tell that appearance that she puts out on stage, that alter ego that she goes into, is that powerful because it totally changes her.
Correct. And so we want to do the same thing, right? So it's going to require some things to do. First, we need to come up, what does that person look like, right? Who is somebody that doesn't take shit off of other people, right? Or lets the water roll off their back. When somebody says no, they're like, hell yes. That means we're just one step closer to a yes, right? What does that personality and what does that person look like, right? You need to come up with that in your own mind and then create an alter ego, right? Come up with a name, right? That you can have it on your wall, have business cards printed up. You can get 500 business cards for $9. Get them printed up with your alter ego's name so you have them sitting there in front of you, right? So, but you got to get in that mindset, and you got to have a ritual, a habit to do that. And we can do that and work with props, okay? So, and this is whether you're getting ready to make phone calls or you're getting ready to go on a listing appointment or whatever it is. I mean, I will tell you, I get to every one of my listing appointments 5 minutes early. And I sit there in my truck for 5 minutes, right? I've had people looking out the windows before, and I know they're wondering, what is he doing? Right, but they don't know. They don't know if I'm on the phone. They don't know if I'm, going through my stuff. But I get in there and I get in that mindset, right? And so for me, one thing I've been doing for years is I turn on some AC/DC, Thunderstruck, and I listen to the whole song through, right? It gets me amped up, right? It gets me in that mindset. Before I start making my calls, first of all, 30 minutes before I'm going to make calls is my time where I start. I start prepping. I go over scripts. I practice scripts and dialogues. What am I going to say? What am I going to talk about? Then about 10 minutes before, guess what? AC/DC, Thunderstruck. It's getting me in that mindset. Then I do all my calls standing up. So, I'm standing at my desk, and here's my prop. I have a little basketball. It used to be a soccer ball. Now it's a basketball just because my dog ate the other one. Doesn't matter, but I like stuff in my hand. So when I'm making calls, I'm playing with the ball. It's just I have it in my hand, and it's my prop. When I pick this up, I get into a different state, right? No one can touch me. I'm Maverick, baby. Nothing's happening, right? I don't care. Let's go. Next. So you got to do that. Any prop you can think of, whatever. I've got coaching clients, some that have a cowboy hat, right? Puts on a cowboy hat before he makes his calls because he's a, kind of John Wayne fan and like, hey, man, John Wayne didn't take shit off anybody. Put this on, I'm John Wayne, baby, right? So you can do whatever it does. I got another guy has a big fake gold chain, right? It's about this big around. He puts it on, he's a gangster, baby. Nothing's going to touch him. This is just while you're making your calls, right? You get in that mindset. Whatever it is, have the prop, get it, put on a certain jacket, put on a wig, a hat, whatever it takes. Just get something that's going to trigger that, right? It is a little bit of acting, right? But, you get in that mindset and nothing can touch you. And that's the problem because people are so scared. But guess what? Now they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting Eminem. They're rejecting Sasha Fierce. They're rejecting John Wayne, right? They're not rejecting you. So then you don't have to take it personally. Be like, that wasn't even me anyway, right? I'm not worried about they said no. And, you got to, when you can accept the mindset of that no, every no is that much closer to a yes, right? I had an agent in my office last week making phone calls, working with them. And we're just going through, and I just, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. He wanted to leave. He was like, oh, I called this thing. I said, give me 15 more minutes. In that 15 more minutes, he said, a listing appointment, right? It's all numbers. I got another coaching client, knows that exactly, he's narrowed it down on average. To get a listing, he needs to contact 63 people. Think about that. If you know your numbers and you're going in, so that means 62 no's to 1 yes, right? So think if you know that and you're hurting for a listing, what do? If you know all I have to do is contact 63 people today and I will have a listing. You can plan your whole life, right? It's all about consistency, mindset, knowing your numbers, all right? So, you can do this when it comes to anything, and you can have different alter egos, right? Like we said, Eminem has Eminem and Slim Shady, right? One of them's just more the musician and the other one's more the gangster, right? So you can have different alter egos when you're calling maybe your clients or your sphere of influence, and maybe it's not as aggressive, right? Or for sale by owner compared to expired. You're probably going to want to be a little more aggressive for expireds than you will for sale by owners. For sale by owner, you want to build that rapport, build that relationship, but have fun with it. Get in that mindset. The other thing is make it a habit, right? Every time you do it, do that, right? Building up. So I kind of went off on a tangent, but I got the ball in my hand, so I get excited. I'm ready to go. I need to not have it in my hand every time we coach, else we're right? So what do you guys think? What have you guys done in the past? Because I know, Shannon, you've made a lot of calls. Sheila, I know you have, because we were on the phone many times talking about it. So give me your ideas. What do you guys do to get into that mindset? And then does it become easier for you?
So for me, yeah, I mean, I was, like I told you, if we go back to my radio days, back in my radio days, I always had an alter ego, right? So Shannon Pyatt was never my name on the radio. It was always Shannon Steele, right?
Right.
And so that's what everybody knew me as. That's how I went on the air. And so I was always Shannon Steele on the air. And so I've kind of incorporated that into real estate. Whenever it's time to make phone calls.
Shannon Pyatt or Shannon Steele?
What's that?
Who's cooler?
Oh, Shannon Steele by far.
See? Right.
By far. I mean, and it got to a point that literally people started calling me the real deal Shannon Steele. And so it stuck with people, right? And so still to this day, I have people that will call me and they don't know my real name. They'll call me Steele. That's what they call me. And so that's been my alter ego, so to speak. Now that I'm not on the radio, I'm not necessarily behind a microphone, so to speak. I'll break out my drumsticks, right? Because I played drums, and I'll break out my drumsticks, I'll sit here and twirl them and stuff like that while I'm making my calls.
Right. It's a prop. It gets you back into that mindset. Anything you can do to help you get in that mindset. Listening to certain music beforehand. I think a prop is huge. No matter, it can be anything, guys. It can be put on a baseball glove, put on a hat, have a favorite shirt that you wear, whatever.
Have it around backwards, like they did in the Rocky movies, right?
Yeah, it can be anything. Just have something that triggers that mindset. So, Sheila, what about you?
So I had a helicopter headset that you would put on with the mic, and the only time I ever wore that headset was when I was doing calls. But when I put that on, the whole world shuts out, and I'm only focused on the calls I'm making. And I literally just mojoed, hammered through calls, one after the. It didn't matter. I don't even know how many hundreds of calls I would make a day. I just hammered through the calls because I was going to do it. And I know that it was a really big deal for me because I'm very much like Beyonce. by nature, I'm shy and I write books. So I like to sit in my room and write books. And I'm a very quiet person. And so for me, this was huge, trying to overcome myself. And Matt actually was working with me back then. And I don't know if you remember this, but one of the things he had said to me at probably a month in or something like that is he said, I didn't feel like I was ready. Like I just kept saying, I'm working on it. I'm getting ready. I'm getting my systems together. I'm getting my spreadsheet ready, blah, 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 blah. And he said, you just need to fire. And
right.
This is what changed it for me. Matt said, it's like shooting a gun, ready, aim, fire. He said, you're doing the ready and you're doing the aim, but you're not firing. You're not pulling the trigger. And so I would sit down and sit my headset on, and every dial I'd say, fire, 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 fire. And I just keep saying that in my head and just keep pushing the button, trigger, 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 trigger. Because it just, even though something that simple made me make the calls. And then once you make the call, there's no going back. I mean, once the dial is done, unless you hang up on the person, you don't have any other choice, because somebody eventually is going to answer the phone.
And we've all been there. We've all hung up on them, been like, oh, I'm not sure. Okay, you hang up. And the worst is when they call you right back, and then you're like, oh, crap, I have to take it now.
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of, calling under fire.
It's a lot like radio. If you think about it, when I was on radio broadcasting, you hit that microphone button and there's nothing going but you.
Right.
And you're either going to talk or you're going to go right into a commercial break. If you go right into a commercial break, you're in trouble. Right. So,
and let's go back to the firing analogy, because I use that all the time. I love it. And really think about this, guys. If you're out there and your goal is to hit a target, right? And you're at a firing range, and you go out there and you spend the whole time and you never take a shot, right? You're getting that aim perfectly, right? You're just waiting. I got it. I think I'm aimed up. And you sit there for 30 minutes and never take a shot. And some guy comes next to you with a machine gun, has no idea how to aim, but just pulls the trigger and it's just firing bullets down the line. And he does that for for 15 minutes while you've been waiting to aim for 30. Who's more likely going to hit the shot or hit that target, right? Mm-hmm. He may be all over the place, but if one of those hits the target, he beats you, yep. Right? And coming into lead generating and talking to people, again, what we talked about earlier, get over yourself. They don't know who you are, right? You're John Wayne, you're Maverick, you're Eminem. Go in with that mindset, and it doesn't matter. So go ahead, fire, make those calls. That's why I love dialer systems, right? Because it forces you, it's easier, than having to manual dial, because you get one rejection manual dialing and you set the phone down and go, you know what? I think I have to pee. And you'll walk out, and then you go down the hall and you go to the restroom, you come back, and you're like, oh, where was I? Oh, you know what? I just got an email. Boom, right? And you're on to something else. You're like, you know what? It's not a good day anyway. I'll just do it tomorrow. And you do that day after day after day. A couple things. And everybody says, well, that phone, that weighs 50 pounds. That's why we say get headsets, right? Put a headset on. You don't have to pick it up. Get a dialer. Just click it and it dials. And once you start, you're dialing. Even if it's a single line dialer. You can do 60 calls in a minute, 60 dials in a minute. Triple line dialer, you can do 200 calls in a minute.
Well, a lot of people don't even realize this, but for instance, we use KV Core, and KV Core actually comes with a single line dialer. It does. If you've got them put in there, you hit your calls for the day and it goes right down the list. So there are plenty of systems out there that offer those things.
Yeah, it's great. So, but again, get out of your own head and create that alter ego. Go out, come up with a name, right? If it's a great, musician that you like, borrow their name. If it's a character on a movie, right? I'm Rambo, baby, or whatever it is, adopt that personality. They're doing nothing but acting on screen anyway, right? That's not who they really are. Right. Just, take that character and become that character for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Be somebody else. Then you don't have to take anything personal, right?
And I think for people who, because, you've got high D people, that like you, who it's just, they're going to, burn through them, that don't struggle as much. But people like me or like Shannon, who are more high I personalities, we're more like the people pleasers. The high S's are the same. So we have a harder time that we have to overcome this. And the big thing to remember is that, number one, it's not personal. Number two, they have no impact on your life. Meaning, if that person hangs up on you or that person's mean with you, I learned a long time ago to just in my head say next, 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 next. And I just keep saying next because statistically at some point, if you get like that guy, 62 no's, number 63 is going to be a yes. So if you just keep saying next, 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 you're just basically trying to get to the yes. And so for people who are people pleaser kind of people, it makes it easier for us because then we don't take it personally. It just becomes a numbers game, and you're just doing it from the perspective of eventually I'm going to get somebody who says yes. And it also keeps you from giving up and walking away or beating yourself up if you're not what you call successful, because you have also, the perfectionistic personality that, feels like, oh, if I don't get every one of them, or if I don't do it the exact right way, I failed. And it's like, no. All of that stuff in your mindset has to go when you're in this kind of business. You can't have a perfectionist mindset in real estate because you fail constantly, and you have to be okay with constantly failing, because that's how you grow. That's how you get better. And that's how you succeed, is by failing in this business. Maybe not in every industry, but in real estate, you have to accept constant failure.
Oh, you show me the most successful agents out there, and I'll show you the biggest failures. Right? They failed more times than anybody else. And back to the calling, I have to put it out because a couple things while you're talking went through my head is because you said that I don't have that problem. I do. And when you said that, it reminded me of this morning, right? Because we were all in Vegas all last week. It's also a habit. Right. And if you get out of the habit, getting back into a habit like working out or anything, it's tougher. Today was tougher for me to pick up the phone. Right. I had too many things going through my head. And when you get in the mindset of, no, this is the number one thing I need to do in my real estate business. Number uno, everything else is second or third. Right. And you have to get in that habit. And then it reminded me of forming habits. I was reading a book, The Answer, over the weekend. Great book. And it talked about, he talked about in there that back in the 60s or 70s, they took like 6 astronauts, right? And they made them wear these glasses where their whole world was upside down, right? Because they wanted to orientate them to space and being upside down and seeing. So they said, you cannot take these off no matter what. You have to wear them until we tell you not to, right? An amazing thing happened. So every day, they were almost going nuts. Every day, you wake up and everything is upside down. Your whole world is upside down. On day 23, an amazing thing happened. One of the astronauts came in and everything was right side up. His brain figured it out. And within the next 5 days, all the astronauts were now wearing the same glasses. Nothing changed. Everything was turned right side up.
Wow.
Their brain went and rewired itself to see it the right way.
Wow.
When we talk about forming habits, right, you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent on doing that, right? And so, and it may take some people 15 days. It may take some 66 days, right? But you have to build that habit, that muscle there. It will get easier, right? And if you don't take it personal, like now, a lot of time for me, it's more just the pain of my schedule, but making the calls is no big deal, right? Mm-hmm. Getting back in the habit of making them is the big deal, right? Because we've been off for a week. So getting back in that habit is the hard part. The making the calls is no big deal. And when you also realize, when you go back to the scripts, which I say is very important to know your scripts. But it doesn't take that long to know them. And I always talk about, you first have to memorize a script, and then you will internalize it, and then you can customize it, right? Here's the great news. In all of real estate, there's only about 10 scripts we have to know, right? There's the same objections every time, whether it's a for sale by owner, an expired listing, a sphere of influence, right? There's only a handful of objections, right? There's probably 4 or 5 total, and you only need to know 1 or 2 objection handlers for those. So once you have them all memorized, which is the first step, then you can internalize it, right? First memorize it, and then as you're going through your calls, it may sound a little memorized. It may sound like you're reading from a script, right? But pretty soon, when you internalize it, then you have the understanding of what you're trying to convey with that script, right? Then you can customize it. You can customize it to the person by mirroring and matching them, by taking on their tonality, or you can just customize it to who you are. And hey, this is me, and here's what I'm trying to actually tell you, right? Because you customize it, and then it's no big deal. I mean, now I will throw on a headset anytime and just start making phone calls because I'm not attached to the answer, right? I'm confident enough. I know what I'm trying to get, the point I'm trying to get across. It's just a matter of, let's see how many people I can get a hold of, right? The quicker, the better. Because I know 64, right? 63, 64, boom. So again, mindset is everything when it comes to this, and you will fail. Here's the great news. The quicker you get after it and you start firing, the quicker you will fail and the quicker you will have your success. Mm-hmm. Just be consistent. Go in there, get a headset. I prefer you stand up and dial, right? Create a bunker out there. Have a place that you're not going to have any distractions, right? That's why we train on doing it in the morning. There's less distractions in the morning. It's not the best time to call. Actually, the best time to call is in the evening, right? That's the best time to call. But more people are successful calling in the morning because they're going to actually do it in the morning before they have all these other distractions. Because if you just did a full day of real estate, right, and now you're like, oh, it's 6 o'clock, I need to lead generate for 2 hours, and you've been working on a deal, and right before you're lead generating, that agent calls you back with good news, bad news, counter offer, whatever, you're like, oh crap, let's get this taken care of. And you skip your lead generation. If you do it first thing in the morning, you may not get as hold of as many people, but you're going to do it, right? And you still will get a hold of quite a few, especially, every year I see it changing with technology, with more people working from home, with virtual offices. There's a lot of people that are home in the mornings now, or they're just home all the time because they're working from home, right? So they take those calls. They're working behind a computer. They don't have a boss over their shoulder, so they can take more personal calls. And so again, get out there, fire, create your alter ego, right? And then put it in the chat. Put what name you came up with. Shannon Steele, right? Put that in there. He's cool, man. I like Shannon Steele. So, he doesn't take shit off anybody, right? So get out there, put it in our chat, right? Put it in there. Let's all come up with an alter ego, and I'll let you guys finish it out.
Not much more to say, man. You nailed it. I mean, that's it. I mean, you gotta kind of step, and that's the one thing, like I said, when I went into radio broadcasting, that was the first thing they taught me is, listen, Shannon Pyatt does not exist. When you step behind the microphone, you are Shannon Steele. Nobody can bring you down. Nobody can upset you. Nobody can do anything. You are there, and you're there to get ratings. And that's exactly what I did. And that's how I took my show from literally non-existent to the #1 in every market I worked in.
Yeah. Right. You can do the same thing as a real estate agent, right? Mm-hmm. Just get that alter ego, get in the habit. And like I said, it's going to take some of you 15 days. It's going to take some of you 60 days, 66 days. But you can't form that habit unless you are out there doing it and firing every day. So awesome. We'll see everybody next week.
Bye.